Please take the roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Schron,
Here.
Mr. Hairston,
Here.
Mr. Greenspan,
Here.
Mr. Germana,
Here.
Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent. We have a quorum, and I'd like the record to reflect that Mr. Miller is in attendance.
Thank you. Is there any public comment related to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair, no one has signed in.
Okay. Has everybody a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting?
Move to approve.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approval of the minutes of the last meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Minutes have been approved. The first item, if we could read it into the record, that'd be great.
Resolution 2016-0074, supporting the county's efforts to collaborate with members of the Arizona Alliance.
Okay. Is there, my understanding is this is an area or an item of which Mr. Miller is interested in this subject matter itself for purposes of maybe giving us an overview. Mr. Miller, would you like to start, and then we'll see if there's anybody from the public related to this that would like to also speak on this issue?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And my colleagues, the point that I want to make right from the start is that this resolution is not ceremonial in nature. At a recent meeting of the Arizona Alliance, we concluded that our effectiveness would be enhanced if we had a resolution of support from each of the participating governments and organizations. The Arizona Alliance is a collaborative organization among Cuyahoga County, NASA Glenn Research Center, Cleveland Hopkins Airport, the Ohio Aerospace Institute, and the cities of Berea, Brook Park, Cleveland, Fairview Park, and North Olmsted. The purpose of the Alliance is to collaborate to create an identifiable economic development district in the region immediately surrounding NASA Glenn Research Center and Cleveland Hopkins Airport, particularly to create and implement technological and logistical economic development spin-offs based on proximity to those two institutions. The goal is consistent with the identification of this area as one of the 10 areas in the county identified by the County Planning Commission in its work on place-based economic development. Cuyahoga County has been represented in the Arizona Alliance from the start through the Development Department, the County Planning Commission, and me. And we have Howard Thompson from the Aerospace Institute and Glenn Coyne from the Planning Commission with us today. The Arizona Alliance received a $50,000 planning grant from the Department of Development to develop the organization name, logo, organizational focus, and promotional materials. I am pleased that this resolution is also sponsored by Executive Budish and his administration, and my colleagues, Councilman Greenspan and Gallagher, who also have Arizona communities in their districts. This resolution and the work of the Arizona Alliance will create new economic development opportunities for Cuyahoga County, and I ask for your support of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, and let the record reflect Ms. Simon is in attendance. Is there anyone else to speak on in regards to this matter and the advantages of it? I see we have two members in the audience. Would either or both like to come up and at least talk as to the advantages?
Sure.
And why this is important to us?
Sure.
Thank you. My name is Howard Thompson. I'm with the Ohio Aerospace Institute. As Councilman Miller had referred, this is a collaboration of NASA Glenn, Hopkins, Cleveland, Brook Park, Berea, North Olmsted, and Fairview Park. We've worked really closely with all of those organizations to bring them together in a focused collaborative alliance. Special thanks to Cuyahoga County for, I think, seeing how bright of an opportunity this could be. I have handouts that we've worked on and created for the district, which show some branding and marketing. Also show how we've put the communities together, the airport, reflecting the airport, and also NASA Glenn. The idea of this is, as Councilman Miller referred to, this is an economic development alliance. We're in the business of real estate development, increasing jobs, and expanding technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship that is generated not only through NASA and the Ohio Aerospace Institute, but a lot of the other corporate players in that area. And the county has been a really good partner so far, from the Planning Commission and Glenn's team, from helping us with the mapping, which has already gained the attraction of a lot of the real estate developers in this area, to the county Economic Development Department, which has stood behind this and brought some initial funding forward.
Any questions from Mr. Thompson as to what it means and its impact? Seeing none from the committee, what kind of jobs are we talking about specifically?
Well, if you ask me, in terms of the job creation,
Well,
the job numbers,
Well, you indicated that this is going to create jobs, and so the logical question for me is, what are the jobs that you envision? What are they going to be doing? What's the impact in the area?
yeah, when I think about the jobs at this, I'm looking at maintenance repair opportunities for aircraft engineers, mechanical engineers, aerospace engineers. I'm looking at helping to retain NASA's engineering community that they currently have. We're talking about a community of 3,000 people that currently work at the NASA Glenn facility, and that's comprised of, a group of 1,500 civil servants and then about 1,500 contracted agents, which reflect not only executives from, graduate and PhD level jobs, but then also, wide degree of engineering opportunities that are over there. I mean, if we play our cards right, there could also be a great manufacturing type of opportunity that comes. I mean, I think what would be the ultimate goal for this is if we get some type of OEM or aircraft framer that would come in and actually want to put a manufacturing facility here.
Is the county airport, is there any way to extend this, or does it have to be immediately contiguous to the property?
No, I don't think in terms of immediate contiguousness, I don't think that. I think there's opportunities to incorporate those, because there's a lot of other assets that, from Burke to Hopkins, and then reaching out a little bit further too, especially with some of the other communities that are adjacent to us as well.
Well, that's what, is a zone defined as being a piece of turf that is all together, or is it a concept of northeastern Ohio, which could then include the county airport?
Yeah, I think the concept is best to describe what we're looking at right now, not necessarily a defined geographic zone. I think we did that intentionally for the purposes of control and able to put it together in a fashion that not only represented an alliance, but also being able to bring the parties together in the most efficient manner.
So one of the things that we had in the economic development plan is to talk about aerospace assets, not necessarily airports. And we've obviously defined this region as having 3 airports. And is this Aerozone Alliance defining and including all 3? It doesn't sound like it includes the county one yet. Does it
No,
include?
I would say it does not include the county one yet, but I think that's something that we definitely look at.
Does it
and
include Burke?
incorporate. It includes Burke, I think, just because I'm doing so much work with Hopkins right now, and they're also planning for Burke. So their planning team is also planning for Burke as well.
Okay, what would it take to get the county airport added to this definition?
Can we include that, Glenn? I think we can include that.
Okay.
Absolutely. Let's
Okay.
include it.
Well, the reason why is because you just described jobs, and jobs being aerospace and people constructing airplanes, either revamping or whatever, and that's already going on up at County Airport.
I think it's a great addition to what we're doing.
I mean, it just seems to me it makes logical sense that way we could probably add some other names that would be happy to be speaking on this. And that also then would probably extend over to flight options up there and all the other things that are going into this from that standpoint. So,
it's a great idea.
Mr. Miller, would you have any problem if we amended this to include our other 2 airports? And it actually brings us back to the county economic development plan, which says let's talk about assets being all assets, not necessarily an airport out there. So from aerospace. Okay, well, I would be happy to. No, I no, but he was the one that actually was part of the driving force to at least get us moving along, and didn't want to leave the mover of this subject matter out in the conversation. So taxes, how about, are there taxes that you see that will be beneficiaries at the county, the income tax level?
Well, when I look at the opportunities there, it's a taxable district, of course, and I think to raise taxes and bring new business development ventures in, I think, of course, we're talking about tax increases. The other thing that, of course, is there is talking about some type of a joint economic development region, if you will, and I think that's the next direction that we would proceed with all the communities that are involved.
My concern was going the other way, actually. It was that the zone is going to be requesting tax exemptions as part of locating within the zone. Is that something that is envisioned as an inducement to get businesses and maintenance and crews?
Well, I can see where you're going with that. So, in something
Yeah, I
along the
didn't-
lines
it wasn't
of
clear. I wanted to make sure
see,
I
okay.
walked you
All
down
right.
a path and then-
I'm going in the direction of increasing taxes. You're going in talking about tax abatement issues. And what I think the opportunity that we have is when you build a nucleus of assets that are available to serve as a resource to industry that is willing to invest in a district, there are some alternative options, from loans, from grants, from collaboration with NASA, to even engaging, if you were to extend it to Jobs Ohio and the state of Ohio, that can be looked at. I mean, you always have that tax abatement issue that's out there, but I think there's a lot of other resources that we could tap into as well.
Well, my concern was that by the mere definition of an aerospace alliance zone, does that automatically create a zone to which tax abatement transfers just because the zone has now been recognized at all?
My first response would be no.
Okay, well, I'm just curious, because I don't want to be,
Yeah.
I don't want us to be signing off on something, and then all of a sudden, the communities have just lost something because we did something without their full participation.
No, intention is to increase tax.
Okay, all right. So there's no automatic benefit because I moved into here. For example, in some zones, foreign trade zones and things like that, merely by moving into the zone, you get advantages that were given away before those folks ever moved in.
I see the direction you're going. The answer is no.
Okay, all right. Any other questions, anything in regards to it? Ms. Simon? Yeah.
I just want to be really clear about what will be the advantage of this, just by merely forming the zone somehow. I want to be clear about what exactly is going to happen, how you're going to create these jobs and by the creation of a zone.
Well, it's not, when you say a zone, let's look at it as a district. We're creating, I think moving away, I think the zone is taking on a connotation that when you compare it to a foreign trade zone and how we're going to reduce taxes, we're creating an economic development district that is combined with resources that not all the communities share together. There's not one entity or organization right now, if you will, that's actually pushing for development across all of those different communities. We're not sharing the resources of what real estate is available right now, what technology that NASA currently has that's available right now that we could actually pull off of that campus and begin developing outside around in those communities.
Why do we need this resolution opposed to merely having these communities work together with their joint resources or combining resources? What is this resolution going to give you that you wouldn't otherwise have? Is it for grant purposes? For the ability perhaps to get joint grant opportunities? What exactly does this piece of paper give you?
Just very simply, what this piece of paper gives us is something that we have never, ever had. I mean, we've never had any of these groups working together under any type of concept of working as a community organization.
Why
I
do they
mean,
need this piece of paper to do that?
I think what the resolution gives them, it gives them the spirit and then also the understanding that if the county is moving forward and taking a stand doing this, then all the communities will also take a stand doing it as well too. I think this actually was initiated by the city of Berea has went ahead and started their own and created their own resolution that we're all going to be doing a resolution together. I mean, this is just one step in showcasing that we're all working together in an alliance that is driving resources together, partners together for the intent of creating something that has not been there.
I'm like
I'm
Ms.
not
Simon.
really satisfied with this, but
Well-
Usually these districts are created to get tax advantages and incentivize this and to be able to use this actual formal district to accomplish something like that, not merely to incentivize communities to work together. They don't need this to do that. But go ahead, Mr. Chair, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm having the same issues. I'm just trying to figure out, Mr. Miller started out saying this is not just a pretty face, it's a functional thing. So I'm having, just reaching out to tell me what's the functional thing going on here and I'm not using my words, I'm using the words that says Aerozone. So I wasn't trying to we're using the word zone versus district, I wasn't trying to do anything other than lift it off the piece of paper. So what is the Aerozone Alliance actually functionally doing? I mean, other than a bunch of people who want to have a like kind experience, whether it's manufacturing or service or whatever, that's great. But what's the economic advantage? What's the financial advantage? What's the thing that really binds these other than a bunch of folks all wanting to do the same thing? Is there any legal entity that is actually being formed here that does something?
Yes.
Okay, what is that?
There is a legal
what is that
entity
something?
that being formed. It's the Aerozone Alliance is going to become a 501c nonprofit organization. And that organization will work to attract new jobs to the area. We're currently talking to a Polish manufacturer right now that's looking at a space to bring 400 new aerospace types of engineer jobs to the community. We've shown them Cleveland Business Park. So this is a direct result of us creating what we will have as a 501c3, as an organization that can serve as a generator of, economic development. I don't want to say this is a community development or a CDC. I like to look at it as this is an economic development organization that is driving new opportunities to attract and create new jobs.
What are your funding sources for is it ultimately you're going to get funds so you can go out and do marketing as this 501c3 and kind of like the Downtown Cleveland Alliance?
Yeah, you look at the Downtown Cleveland Alliance, look at University Circle.
Yeah.
You can look at you look at down into Florida when they have the Kennedy Space Center. They have something similar, what they refer to as an Aerotropolis, which is the concept behind the Aerozone Alliance. But it's when people are working together for the definition of creating an economic development district with certain assets that you have available.
So eventually you're going to get to fundraising within this alliance, within this 501c3, so that you don't have a taxable consequence as a result of this.
That's correct.
If I'm understanding it?
That's
Okay.
correct.
And then staff and all the components that take place when you build that up there and mark. It sounds to me as though the primary function is a marketing component that ultimately is going to be marketing this region or
Well, yeah.
this sector.
I think there's a marketing component to it, but I think there's a definite business opportunity here because right now, no one, and let's say frankly, no one is taking technology or working technology transfer to take it out of NASA and put it anywhere in the community. There's no one doing that right now.
No, that's not necessarily true. NASA's doing it, and I know they work with Magnet, and I know that they have spin-offs, and I know that we've been approached. I mean, a lot of people
Yeah.
have
But
been
in a
approached.
consolidated, jointly combined effort. I mean, piecemeal for sure.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
the only one that
piecemeal.
owns the asset is NASA. My assumption will be that this Aerospace Alliance will not own the assets, any of the intellectual property that belongs to NASA. That's just my guess. NASA really protects those intellectual property
Well,
assets.
hopefully it's just to move those outside of their gates into the community gate, so we're just not utilizing or what NASA has on a shelf somewhere, but we're taking certain licenses or IP that they have that they are able to sell, partner, venture, and developing those around the community or within this district. That's where this thing really becomes effective. Not talking about giving people a loan to help on a certain NASA technology. This is about joint venturing opportunity and building real things that create jobs.
No,
I mean, that's the intent.
I'm very familiar with that. I'll show you the documents we have where we've been licensed by NASA to build electric screwdrivers under under license from them. So I'm a little familiar with that. Mr. Greenspan, did you have?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to fight it, I'm just trying to understand it.
Oh, yeah.
No, I agree.
Well, yeah, I also think the one thing that I want to point out in kind of a real life example as to where I believe there's benefit in somebody focusing on this space is the fact that in Fairview Park, as an example, there are two buildings that were once NASA buildings, the 501 and 500 building, that are vacant now. They've been vacant for a number of years, and they're vacant because candidly, a neighboring community took those jobs from Fairview Park and moved them literally across the street in the Brook Park. And as a result, those buildings have been sitting vacant for years. And as a matter of fact, there was discussion that those buildings had asbestos. It turns out that they did not. But the challenge has been, without a focal point of an entity or an organization looking at assisting in the utilization of that space has continued to remain dormant. So I believe, part of the concern here is how do we attract somebody? How do we sell it as a strategic vision? Representing two of these communities, I can tell you, especially with Fairview Park in particular, the 500, 501 buildings have been vacant for a while. They're looking for a tenant. They've actually gone back and forth. The federal government eventually wound up selling them, but it took literally an act of members of Congress to make that happen. It was a laborious process. And so this actually not only strengthens the assets pertaining to NASA directly, but also focus on other areas. Those buildings may not go to an aerospace contractor, although it would be desirable, but just somebody focusing, in addition to the city, on how to utilize. I can just speak specifically to those two buildings. It's important. So I'll leave that statement where it was. The other thing I wanted to add, if we're going to amend this, I believe I have language kind of drafted to amend to include Burke and County Airport. If we're ready for that, I'll be glad to introduce those amendments.
Yeah, that's fine. Explain to me then how the buildings in Fairview Park that were empty, that were referred to by Mr. Greenspan, and the tenants then moved over into a different building. How is this vehicle going to change that? Because my guess is Fairview Park was disappointed of having lost it. Parma was thrilled to having received it. That horse trading is going to take place, irrespective of this. It seems to me you're still going to have people fighting because ultimately it was going to coming out of one community's taxing district and going into another one's. Clear indication that in my opinion, that all of the stuff with the anti-poaching probably was not ultimately very effective in this particular area. It sounds like. So tell me, how does that work? Because I want to figure out what we're doing, because realistically, we could be looking at resolutions all the time of stuff of this nature. And I mean, I know there's a watershed district that would love to do stuff, and there's one that even in my community that wants to do stuff. And so I don't want to bog down people without having some horsepower that they're going to get some benefit from what we're talking about, I guess, is ultimately. Yeah.
And I think simply the answer is let's create the demand. Let's create the demand for and the attraction for being close to the airport, for taking advantage of the resources that are there. Let's create the same thing for NASA. Let's create the reason why you've got 5 communities working together right now. Let's add other communities around there, why they would want to be part of that alliance of working together. So the demand overshadows what might be having from moving back and forth between various communities because of you had contractors that were beginning to shrink because of the job classifications that were beginning to shrink. And let's look at new methods of bringing people back in rather than just watching people shift back and forth. I mean, when you create a demand that can fulfill what you have within that property that's there, or that's right next door to the Cleveland Business Park or the Aerospace Parkway. I mean, I think you generate more opportunity that you'll be talking about rather than talking about, oh, these people moved from Fairview Park to Brook Park. I think the idea is to generate more opportunity rather than just watching people move back and forth from communities.
Aerospace all over this county and all over this region. my guess would be, there's a lot of people wouldn't be overly thrilled with moving Norman Noble over to the west side. That's making a lot of airspace parts over on the east side, just because there's a park that's opening on the west side. And you'd have a lot of folks who are concerned if you're going to move some of the swage lock machining of aerospace parts. I mean, I'm just thinking that where does this thing ultimately go? What's our objective here? And so I'm just trying to figure out how it
Well, let me
all
ask
fits
this.
together.
What's your marketing strategy to fill the real estate?
I had a question. I
think
had
then
a
we'll come back.
question. You said that this resolution is going to help create demand. I still don't see how this district, a resolution is going to do anything other than sit on our books. And you're right, other places can form districts without, you must have a plan for the district that's going to impact the county. You don't really need us. You're going to have a 501c3 that's going to create an umbrella. What's the name of the 501c3 organization going to be?
Arizona Alliance,
Right.
right?
My point.
Right.
You already are going to have that alliance created by a nonprofit organization, and you can market and create demand by way of that vehicle. I don't think the county needs to jump in and say, okay, we have a piece of paper called a resolution that's going to do anything different than that which you're already doing, unless you want some official stamp from the county and say, we like this.
No, I don't think the official stamp is not necessarily what I'm looking for the county. The official stamp that I'm looking for the county is a high level of participation, not only from the county economic development department, the county council, of course, the county planning commission, that are all providing a lot of services and resources that are going into support the Arizona Alliance. And let's not stop there, because there's a financial opportunity too.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, you mean money from the county and resources? That's why we have a resolution, so that down the road you can apply for opportunities to get money from the county funding for the nonprofit?
If that's an opportunity that would exist, that'd be great.
Well, that opportunity would already exist despite having a resolution. If you create a nonprofit that would be somehow consistent with what the tools we have in our box, you'll be able to apply for funds. I don't know if this,
They already have. They got a $50,000 grant from the planning commission.
what?
They already got a $50,000 grant. from the
So
planning
that's,
commission.
why do we need a
From
resolution?
development, I'm sorry, from development.
Okay, it's, I don't want it to come across as contrarian. I'm just trying to figure out where do we fit. None either. Mr. Germano, you haven't spoken yet. We'll go there after Mr. Greenspan. Okay, Mr. Greenspan, and Ms. Green, and then we'll finish off with Mr. Miller.
Yeah, so let me just see if I understand what's going on. So the county's already signed on as a participant in this prior to this resolution.
Correct.
And this is through the administration. So collaboration, economic development, or development have already engaged, as is the planning commission, as are these 5 communities right now.
Correct.
So they're already on board. You're already up and running. You've received your grant, and this further just codifies an existing relationship that exists. Correct?
Yeah, and remember, when we first initiated this, just so you all know, that the Ohio Aerospace Institute was the receiver of the initial funding to move this forward.
Okay.
We're in the process of, putting together the appropriate documents for the nonprofit side of it.
Okay. So
And as the communities are passing their own resolutions, which they all will be passing a resolution, I think that just what generated into, it would be appropriate to have a county resolution, but now I'm hearing
No, and
contrary remarks.
no. You're just hearing people asking why. I mean, what's actually going on here, and just so we have an understanding, where do we fit as far as bringing these things together? Mr. Germano, you were next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been quiet here, trying to hear all sides. To my mind, this is formalizing cooperation, and we have a group that wants to formalize. They're all contiguous, except now that we've got Burke and the county airport, that they're not necessarily contiguous, but so I see no harm in it. I don't, some of the questions are, well, what's the benefit of it? Well, there might not be, I think the benefit is they're formalizing cooperation and working together on a common economic goal. So I see it, and I can't see any downside of us just ratifying this.
Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, as someone who has represented this area for a long time, I'm going to offer some historical perspective that will either clarify or further muddy the waters. I hope it's the former, but for many years, there's been a recognition that that NASA Glen and the airport being so close together, and NASA Glen being one of only 10 or 12 such centers in the country, that it created a whole lot of opportunities for economic development spin-offs and for contracting and related businesses to grow up in and around the area, and that other cities have certainly taken advantage of in a big way, but for whatever reasons we have not, and the idea has been there ought to be a way that we can kind of get this jump started, and so the idea came forward to get the adjacent communities together and working together, and I think in some ways it's like the new county government when it started. You know, I think when we started, we didn't have all the answers as to how it would be put together, and I think with this we don't have all the answers how it would be put together and how it would be done, but we think if the communities collaborate and work together and have a common goal, that hopefully something positive will happen. And for the last couple years, we've been having these meetings, and it's been sponsored by the Aerospace Institute, and it's been Mr. Coyne from county planning, and I've attended a lot of the meetings, and it's been mostly economic development directors, not mayors, from the participant cities, and there's been some people off and on from county development, and so. So the thought emerged from particularly when the Berea resolution came forward, that it would be helpful if a statement was made by each of the participating communities expressing support for this concept, so that these county representatives, economic development planners, and so on that are part of this organization know and can tell the people out in the business community that this isn't just something that we're doing on our own as individuals, but that we have the support of our respective governments, and I think it's not more or less than that. Will the resolution help us in our work and help us be a little more effective? Yes, I think it'll do that. Could we operate without these resolutions? Yeah, we could operate without them, but that's what I think. I think it would be helpful in cementing the common purpose to try to accomplish something here that for a number of decades it's been recognized that the potential is there, but it just hasn't been realized, and we don't have all the answers as to exactly how how it's going to go forward. But we do think that collaboration is the path, and that's what this memorializes. So that's my thoughts.
Did you have something?
Yeah, thank you. So,
Sure.
so if we were to amend this to include Burke and County Airport, we can't, Highland Heights hasn't weighed in yet. They have not been contacted, correct, to see if they're part of this pact?
That's correct.
Okay, so if we were to amend it, we would have to exclude them at this point. Cleveland, obviously with Burke, is already part of the pact, so they could be added. But we don't know if are they interested in Burke being included in this, as part of the package?
It's already talked about as an asset that, of course, is there because we've involved Hopkins
So am I assuming that these 5 cities have already adopted resolutions?
in the process thereof. Berea is the first one that has passed their resolution.
Mr. Greenspan, as a minimum, we as a county, because we own the airport, could join, even if it doesn't include the community to which it's located. I mean,
Correct, but where I was going was my amendment was going to amend to include the city of Highland Heights, but if they've not been contacted, then there's no reason to include them because we can't,
It's Richmond Heights.
or Richmond Heights, I'm sorry.
I knew you were eventually we're gonna get there. Yeah, it's okay. The airport goes over, when you take off on an airplane, you actually go over Highland Heights.
Okay.
Your aircraft, or your land over that.
So,
Well, the other possibility is let's take a look at it and see where we are, and we can come back in second or third reading and make the amendment at that point in time. Doesn't have to be done today. We can vote it out today, and you can come back an amendment at a later time. And would that be satisfactory to, I don't know, is there timing related to this? Does this have to hit a certain threshold date so we can go through the normal
No,
readings?
I think the intent was that this is moving up into a point where some type of public announcement is going to be made by the county executive, and I think this is just setting all those pieces and parts in motion.
Okay, well, we could certainly move that way. Way I look at this, if I say high tech, your mind automatically goes to a region called Silicon Valley. If I say R&D, you're probably going to think of MIT or the Research Triangle, so your mind goes to there. What you're trying to say is this is a region around aerospace, and you want to make that statement to the world that this is going to be an aerospace. Trying to redefine this region as aerospace oriented. Is that a correct assumption?
I think that's a good way to look at it, but I think in terms of the breadth and the opportunity, you could take that to a step that why can't this be a center for other types of research and development?
Well, it could,
innovation,
but one thing
the arrow sets it, I think, for you there. But
yeah,
it's,
the only thing about marketing is they always try to stay with a single message as opposed to getting it too complicated. But what it tells me you're trying to do is you're trying to bring in organizations outside the region to hopefully land in there or foster those that are within this region. Is that logical?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. We're on that same page. So therefore, the risk, Mr. Germana did not see any risk. The risk is that if this region becomes a strong player, aerospace-wise, that you will potentially be pulling companies not just outside the region, but you could be pulling intra-regional folks to leave where they are into this region. Now you will potentially set up and it's very logical. If I'm a business guy and I'm getting aerospace, I want to be close to my customers. I want to be close to my suppliers. I want to be close to where everything is taking place. That's not an illogical concept. I'm trying to encourage the medical folks to do the exact same thing. That's why they want to be in the medical corridor. This is our aerospace. I just think we need to be cognizant of the fact that we will potentially be poaching businesses within our own county to go there, which I'm 100% in favor of if that's where it logically belongs.
well, Mr. Schron, maybe we should have the Aerospace Alliance, Arizona, sign the anti-poaching agreement.
I wasn't in favor in the first place.
No.
I'm not in favor of that. I still am not in favor of it. But I just want Mr. Germana to realize that it's very logical that businesses will follow business. They will follow where their customers are, and they will follow where their suppliers are going to be. And I think it makes a lot of sense. So I don't want anybody to be shocked when something leaves. So I would be supportive of this because I think we need to have medical region, manufacturing region, aerospace region, things of that nature, because I think it will help foster growth out there. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, are you acceptable to have that amended second or third reading?
Yeah, we'll amend it on the floor. Yeah,
Yeah.
We'll work with Mr. King and
Okay.
get the amendments drafted.
And I know that we probably, is there anything that we've left out of this discussion that you could add any pearls of wisdom that you would like to?
Mr. Chairman, Glenn Coyne, County Planning. I don't know about pearls of wisdom, but I would just add two things. One, I look forward to the day when this type of collaboration is every day. To have these 5 communities get together and say we want to do a resolution, I think that was more the focus. And oh boy, wouldn't it be great if the county were on board too? I don't think we're there yet throughout the county. So to have this collaboration happen, I think is a positive thing. The other thing I would only mention is this emerged from our place-based economic development report and our strategy. It was about this area. I don't want to discount that we need an overall strategy on how we deal with airports and high tech and aerospace, but the idea was that we were looking at a neighborhood plan for this particular area of the county, and this kind of emerged as a strategy of how to do that. And there's other things there that weren't really mentioned yet, like all of the railroads come right through there. We got interstates, we have metro parks, we have RTA service. There's lots of things that are happening right there that is a unique set of physical circumstances that we don't see in other parts of the county. All the points that you made are perfectly right, but I just wanted to go back to the genesis of the idea as what could we do for this geographic area to do the kind of things that Howard mentioned with marketing, economic development, and to bring in jobs. So that's all I would add to the conversation that you've been having.
Yeah, and some of those jobs might be intra. Just be prepared for that.
Right.
Yep. Any other questions, comments, Ms. Simon? No. Okay, thanks. There's nothing else before this. Is there a move to have this moved to the floor for second reading?
Motion to recommend council for second reading.
Been moved and seconded. Any other further discussion? All in favor of moving out for second reading, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll move it along. Is there anybody signing in for, is there any miscellaneous business from anybody on the committee? Hearing none. Anybody signed up for public comment unrelated to this item on the agenda?
No, Mr.
Hearing-
Chair.
Hearing none. Call the meeting adjourned.